In the quiet of the forest, where bamboo sways gently in the breeze, the soft hum of nature can be heard. The moon hangs in the sky like a luminous lantern, casting its cool light over the earth. Beneath its serene glow, you sit in silence, feeling the rhythm of the world flow around you, connecting you with all things. As you breathe in, you feel the air enter your body, cool and fresh. With each exhalation, a wave of tension melts away, leaving you lighter, more at peace. The world outside may be noisy and demanding, but in this moment, there is stillness. The sounds of the temple bell, distant and faint, mark the passage of time. Yet here in this space, time is not a worry. There is only now, stress and tension. These are the burdens many carry. The weight of expectations, responsibilities, and emotions can build upon the shoulders, sometimes without us even noticing. But within the teachings of Zen, there is a simple truth. Letting go is not just a practice, but a way of living. In the delicate art of surrender, we find peace. To let go of stress and tension is to recognize that we cannot control every aspect of life. Life flows like a river, sometimes gentle, sometimes turbulent, but always moving. The Zen path encourages us to step into this flow, to release our need to hold on tightly, and instead to embrace the impermanence of all things. In Zen, we do not strive to eliminate stress entirely, nor do we resist it. We simply observe, allowing it to rise and fall like the tide. And in this observation, we find freedom. Over the next few parts, we will explore stories of monks, travelers, children, and villagers, all learning to release the tension that binds them. Each story will gently unfold a lesson on mindfulness, compassion, and the art of letting go. The Zen teaching behind letting go of stress and tension. Zen is a practice of profound simplicity. It does not ask for grand gestures or intellectual understanding. It invites you to return to the present moment, to the breath, to the body, and to the natural world. When you breathe deeply and mindfully, you connect with the life force that flows through you. You realize that the stress and tension that you carry are not inherent to you. They're simply temporary visitors that arise from the mind's attachment. In Zen, we speak of the concept of shirkantaza, just sitting. This is the practice of being present without trying to change anything. The mind naturally wanders. It clings to thoughts, to fears, to desires. But the practice is to allow these thoughts to arise without attaching to them, to simply observe them as they pass by. Stress often comes from trying to control outcomes, from grasping at what is not in our hands. We try to control the way things unfold, the pace of life, the actions of others. This constant striving creates tension, and we become like the tight string of a bow, pulled taut, ready to snap. The Zen approach is different. It invites us to release the tension, to soften, to rest. The practice is to be with things just as they are. Compassion is also integral to this path. We show compassion not only to others, but to ourselves. The tension we feel is often a result of self-criticism, judgment, and unrealistic expectations. By practicing compassion, we can soften the inner dialogue that causes stress, replacing it with gentle acceptance and understanding. Impermanence is another cornerstone of Zen wisdom. Nothing lasts forever, not even stress. When we allow ourselves to acknowledge the transient nature of all things, we begin to release our attachment to them. What is here today may be gone tomorrow. Just as the moonlight fades as the night deepens, so too does the stress that we may feel if we allow it to. In the following stories, we will explore these teachings through the experiences of various individuals. Through each story, you will learn the art of letting go, of surrendering to the flow of life, and of finding peace within. Preparing for the stories. As you prepare to listen to the stories, let yourself relax into the present moment. Close your eyes for a moment and take a few deep breaths. Inhale deeply, feeling the air fill your lungs. Then exhale slowly, allowing any tension or stress to release with the breath. Feel your shoulders relax, your hands soften, and your body ease into the space you occupy. The stories that will follow are meant to guide you, not with grand philosophical teachings, but with gentle wisdom drawn from everyday life. Like the quiet ripples of a pond, the lessons are simple, yet profound. Each story will unfold like a leaf floating on a calm stream. The characters, like you, will experience moments of tension, doubt, and struggle. But just as the river eventually finds its course, so too will they find their way back to peace. As you listen, remember that each story is a reflection of your own journey. The path to letting go of stress and tension is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice. And each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the stillness you seek. In the next part, we will begin with the first story, a tale of a young monk who learns the power of letting go while facing an unexpected challenge. Story 1. The Burden of the Heavy Basket. The sun was beginning to set behind the distant mountains, casting a soft, golden glow over the peaceful temple grounds. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the bamboo trees, and the sound of a distant river flowing serenely filled the air. It was the perfect evening for contemplation. The temple bell rang gently in the distance, signaling the closing of another day. In the courtyard, a young monk named Soren sat quietly, watching the shadows stretch across the stone path. His thoughts wandered, and a sense of restlessness stirred within him. He had been training diligently at the temple for many months, but there was still a tension in his heart, a feeling of striving for something he couldn't quite reach. Soren was a monk who had recently joined the temple. His heart was full of good intentions, yet his mind was often clouded with thoughts of proving himself, achieving something, and becoming better. His teacher, Master Hashin, was wise and gentle, but Soren felt the pressure of living up to his expectations. One day, Master Hashin noticed Soren's restless demeanor and approached him quietly. "Soren," the master said softly, "come with me. I have something to show you." Soren followed the master without question, curiosity piquing his interest. They walked down the stone path to a small garden where a large bamboo basket was resting on the ground. The basket was filled with water-soaked stones, heavy and cumbersome. "You are to carry this basket," Master Hashin said, "and bring it up the hill to the temple's entrance." Soren nodded, but as he tried to lift the basket, he found it far heavier than he had expected. The stones seemed to press down on him with an unrelenting force, and the weight was almost too much to bear. He gritted his teeth, and began his ascent up the hill, struggling to lift the basket higher with every step. As he walked, his mind raced. He thought of all the tasks he had left undone, of the promises he had made to himself to be a better monk, a better person. The weight of the basket seemed to symbolize all of this: the expectations, the striving, the pressure to succeed. The higher he climbed, the heavier the basket felt, and soon his shoulders were aching with the strain. But Master Hashin was walking behind him, calm and steady, watching silently. Soren felt the sweat trickle down his back, his breath shallow and quick. He was struggling, yet Master Hashin made no move to help. After a while, they reached a small clearing where the path leveled out. Soren, exhausted and out of breath, collapsed to the ground, placing the basket beside him. He looked up at Master Hashin, confusion in his eyes. "Master," he said, "the basket is too heavy. I cannot carry it. It is too much for me." Master Hashin smiled softly and sat beside him. "Soren," he said, "this basket you carry is like the tension in your heart, the weight of expectations, the pressure to achieve, the striving for something you feel you do not yet have. This is the burden you place upon yourself. It is not the basket that is heavy, but your attachment to it. If you let go of the desire to control it, to make it lighter, you will find that the burden is not so great." Soren was silent, taking in the words. His heart felt lighter, as if the weight of the basket had shifted in his mind. The master continued, "Just as you walk up this hill, you may carry the burdens of your thoughts. But remember, do not cling to them. Do not identify yourself with them. You are not your striving. You are not your burdens. You are the stillness beneath it all, the space that allows everything to pass by." Soren sat in silence for a long time, feeling the cool evening air around him. The weight of the basket no longer seemed so oppressive. He realized that much of his tension had come from his constant striving to become something he thought he should be. He had been holding on to his ambitions and desires, thinking that they were the path to peace, when in fact, they were the source of his suffering. As the moon began to rise above the temple, casting its silver light across the landscape, Soren felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. He understood now that true freedom came from letting go, not of his responsibilities, but of his attachment to the outcome. The more he released his need to control, the more he was able to embrace the natural flow of life. Master Hashin rose from the ground, gently patting Soren on the shoulder. "Let us return to the temple," he said. "There is no need to carry the basket anymore. You have learned what you needed to know." As they walked back down the hill, Soren felt lighter, as if the air itself had become easier to breathe. The moonlight bathed the path in its soft glow, and the sound of the river in the distance became a soothing melody. The weight of the world had lifted from his shoulders, and in its place was the quiet peace of simply being. Soren now understood that the key to letting go of stress and tension was not in forcing the world to change, but in changing how he related to it. By releasing his grip on the need for control, he had found a deeper sense of freedom. As you sit in silence, reflect on this story. Imagine yourself walking up the hill, carrying the basket of tension. Feel the weight of your own expectations and desires. Now, gently let them go one by one until you are walking freely, the weight of the world no longer pressing on you. You are at peace, not because you have changed the world, but because you have released your need to change it. Sit quietly now and breathe deeply. Let each inhale bring in calm, and each exhale release what you no longer need. Like the leaves falling gently from the tree, let go of the burdens you carry. Feel your body relax into the earth, supported by the present moment. Let go and find your way back to the stillness that is always within you. The moral of this story is clear. Stress and tension arise when we cling too tightly to the world around us, when we try to control outcomes and force life to conform to our desires. True peace comes from letting go, not of life itself, but of our attachment to how it should be. When we release the need to control, we can walk freely with lightness in our hearts, trusting that life will unfold as it is meant to. In the next part, we will explore another tale, a story of a traveler who learns the art of surrender through a simple encounter with a wise old woman. Story 2: The Traveler in the River. The morning mist drifted lazily above a quiet river, curling like incense smoke in the soft dawn light. The air was cool, scented with moss and damp earth. Birds called from the branches of willow trees, their songs faint but clear. On the riverbank, a single stone bridge arched over the flowing water, its surface glistening with dew. At this peaceful place, a traveler stood with a heavy pack slung over his shoulders. His name was Run. He had been walking for many days through mountains and valleys, seeking a monastery said to hold the secret to a calm mind and an untroubled heart. His feet were sore, and his spirit was weary. Though he had left the noise of the city behind, the noise within him had only grown louder. Rin was not unlike many who wander through life, restless, uncertain, driven by an invisible burden. He was a man who carried too much, regrets from his past, worries about the future, and the constant ache of wanting things to be different than they were. As he reached the edge of the river, he saw an old woman sitting quietly by the water. Her hair was white like snow, her robes simple and worn. She was washing a few small bowls in the river, moving slowly and gracefully. There was something about her presence that made the air feel still. Rin approached her and bowed politely. "Old mother," he said, "I have been traveling for many days to reach the temple beyond this river. I seek the wisdom to free my mind from worry and tension. But this river has no bridge, and I do not know how to cross." The woman smiled faintly and looked up from her washing. "The river flows, as it always has," she said. "It has no concern for who crosses and who waits. Sit, traveler. Rest a while." Ren hesitated. He was eager to continue his journey, but something in her calm tone disarmed him. He sat beside her, setting down his heavy pack. For a while, they sat in silence, listening to the gentle sound of water against stone. The old woman seemed perfectly content, while Ren fidgeted, unable to relax. Finally, he spoke. "You seem at peace here. Tell me, how can I let go of my worries? My thoughts chase me like dogs wherever I go. Even now, I cannot rest. My mind will not stop turning." The woman rinsed the last bowl and placed it on the rock to dry. She looked at Run and said, "You carry your pack on your shoulders, yet your heart carries an even heavier one." Rin frowned. "My pack I can take off, but how can I put down the burdens of the heart?" The woman gestured toward the flowing river. "Tell me, traveler," she said, "if you wish to cross this river, what must you do?" Rin thought for a moment. I must wade into it, or build a raft, or swim. Indeed, she nodded. But once you reach the other side, would you carry the raft on your back? Rin shook his head. Of course not. That would be foolish. The woman smiled gently. And yet you do this every day with your thoughts, your worries, your memories. You build a raft to cross one moment in life, then carry it long after you have reached the other side. You cling to what was useful, even when it becomes a burden. Rin looked at the river, watching how easily the water flowed around rocks and fallen branches. It did not resist. It did not hold on. It simply moved forward. The woman continued. Your mind is like this river. When you let it flow naturally, it carries everything away: stress, anger, fear. But when you dam it with attachment and control, it grows restless and turbulent. To find peace, you must let it flow. Rin sat quietly, letting her words settle like pebbles sinking to the riverbed. He closed his eyes and listened to the sound of the current. For the first time in many days, his breathing slowed. He realized that his constant striving for peace was, in itself, a form of resistance. He wanted to force calm into his mind, as though peace could be conquered by effort. But peace, he now understood, is not something to be forced. It is revealed when you stop fighting the current. He looked again at the water and imagined his thoughts drifting away. His past mistakes, his future fears, his endless striving. Each one floated down the stream, carried effortlessly by the flow. The old woman stood, drying her hands on a rope. You do not need to reach the temple, she said softly. You have already begun to cross the river. Rin looked up, startled. But the temple, she interrupted with a smile. The temple is within you. The wisdom you seek has always been there. You only needed to stop clutching your burdens long enough to notice. As she walked away down the riverbank, her figure seemed to dissolve into the morning mist. Rin sat in silence for a long time, feeling the truth of her words ripple through him. When he finally rose, Rin loosened the straps of his pack and let it fall to the ground. He took a deep breath, then stepped barefoot into the river. The water was cold, but gentle. Each step sent ripples outward, merging with the endless flow. He crossed slowly, feeling the current against his legs, but this time he did not resist it. He allowed it to guide him, to support him. When he reached the far bank, he turned back one last time. The river continued to flow, just as it always had, calm, eternal, unconcerned with who came or went. Rin smiled softly, bowed to the river, and walked onward with light steps. The path ahead was still uncertain, but his heart was at ease. He had learned that peace was not at the end of his journey. It was in every breath, every step, every moment of surrender. Take a slow, deep breath. Imagine yourself standing by that same river. With each inhale, feel the cool air fill your body. With each exhale, imagine your worries flowing downstream, far away. See them drift one by one, small leaves on the surface of the water, until the river carries them from sight. There is no need to chase them, no need to hold on. The river knows what to do. So do you. Let the mind flow naturally. Let the body soften. Let the present moment hold you, like water holds the moon's reflection. To let go of stress and tension, you must stop clinging to what has already passed. Life, like a river, moves continuously. When you try to control its flow, you create struggle. When you surrender to its rhythm, you find peace. The art of letting go is not weakness. It is the wisdom of trusting that life knows where it is going. In the next part, we'll move to story 3, The Monk and the Falling Leaves, a tale about impermanence and finding calm within change. Story 3, The Monk and the Falling Leaves. It was autumn in a mountain temple. The air was cool and clear, carrying the faint scent of pine and incense. The wind whispered softly through the bamboo forest, and the sound of dry leaves rustling along the stone paths echoed like gentle footsteps of time itself. Beneath an old maple tree, a young monk named Quintus sat cross-legged, sweeping the temple courtyard. The crimson and gold leaves fell around him like rain. He had been sweeping since dawn, yet it seemed the more he swept, the more leaves fell. His broom created perfect circles on the stone ground, only for the next gust of wind to scatter new leaves across it again. The temple bell chimed faintly in the distance, signaling mid-morning meditation, but Kenta did not move. Frustration began to ripple through his chest like waves breaking against rocks. Kenta had joined the temple in search of peace, but his restless mind had followed him there. Every day he performed his duties, fetching water, tending the garden, cleaning the temple. But he often felt irritated by the endlessness of it all. Why sweep if the wind would only undo his work? Why rake the garden when the rain would wash it away? Why meditate when thoughts always returned, uninvited and noisy? The abbot, Master Rio, had noticed Kenna's impatience, but he said nothing. He simply observed, as still and silent as the mountains themselves. That morning, as Kenta grew more frustrated with the falling leaves, he muttered under his breath, "What is the point of sweeping when nature refuses to stay clean?" Just then, Master Rio appeared, his wooden sandals making a soft clack on the stones. He watched the young monk struggle with the broom for a while, then spoke gently. "Kenta," he said, "are you fighting the wind?" Kenta lowered his broom and sighed. "Master, I'm trying to keep the courtyard clean, but the leaves keep falling. It's useless." The master nodded slowly, his eyes kind. "Then why not stop sweeping?" Kenta blinked, unsure how to answer. "But that will be lazy. The courtyard must be clean." Master Rio smiled faintly. You wish for a clean courtyard that stays clean forever." Kenta hesitated. "Yes, I suppose that would be ideal." The master turned his gaze to the trees, swaying in the breeze. "The leaves fall because the season has changed," he said. "The tree does not mourn its loss. The wind does not apologize for scattering what has fallen. Why then, do you resist what nature accepts?" Kenta frowned, the broom still in his hand. "But master, if I stop sweeping, the temple will be covered in leaves." "Then sweep," said the master. "But do not sweep for the sake of perfection. Sweep for the sake of sweeping." He looked directly at Kenta and added, "To sweep the courtyard is to sweep the mind. The leaves will fall again, just as thoughts will return. But peace is not in having no leaves. It is in learning to love their fall." With that, Master Rio turned and walked back toward the meditation hall, his robes whispering against the ground. Kenta stood frozen, the meaning of his words stirring something deep within him. Kenta resumed sweeping, but this time he moved more slowly. He felt the handle of the broom in his palms, the smooth texture of wood worn by years of use. He noticed the faint crunch of leaves underfoot, the coolness of the morning air against his skin, the way the light danced through the maple branches above. Each sweep became a meditation. The broom moved, the leaves scattered, and the moment passed. He did not rush to finish. He did not curse the wind. He simply swept. The act itself became enough. Hours later, the courtyard was once again covered in leaves, but Kenton no longer felt frustration. He felt gratitude. The wind had given him another chance to practice presence. Each leaf that fell reminded him that nothing in life remains fixed. Not the seasons, not the mind, not even his own breath. Peace, he realized, did not come from controlling the world. It came from releasing the need to control it. The wind would always blow. The leaves would always fall. The only thing he could truly guide was his response. As evening approached, the golden light of sunset touched the temple walls. Kenneth set down his broom and watched the last few leaves drift gently to the ground. They spun in the air like tiny dancers, graceful and free. He smiled softly. There was beauty in their fall, beauty in impermanence itself. When the abbot returned that evening, he found Kenta sitting quietly beneath the maple tree, the courtyard half covered in leaves. "Ah," said the master, smiling, "you have learned the way of the wind." Kenta bowed deeply. "Yes, master. I have learned that peace does not mean an empty courtyard. It means a calm heart while sweeping." Master Rio nodded approvingly. "Then the leaves have taught you well. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing in that courtyard beneath the maple tree. The wind moves gently through your hair. Leaves fall softly around you, each one unique, each one free. Breathe deeply. As you inhale, feel the stillness within you. As you exhale, imagine the tension of your day falling away, like the leaves returning to the earth. You do not need to control the falling leaves of life. You only need to breathe and allow them to fall. Impermanence is not the enemy of peace, it is its teacher. When you let go of your need for things to stay the same, you create space for calm acceptance. Life will never stop changing, but you can stop resisting the change. Peace is not found in a perfect world. Peace is found in your ability to remain still while the world continues to move. Story 4. The Potter and the Cracked Bowl. Morning sunlight streamed through the open doors of a small pottery workshop. Dust particles floated lazily in the golden light, like tiny stars suspended in air. The scent of wet clay filled the room, earthy and grounding. In one corner, the rhythmic sound of a spinning wheel echoed, steady, hypnotic, like a heartbeat in time with the universe. Outside, the cherry blossoms were beginning to bloom, their pink petals fluttering softly in the spring wind. The temple bell from across the valley rang faintly, marking the passing hour. Inside the workshop sat Master Daigo, a potter known across the region for his skill and patience. His hands moved slowly but with purpose, shaping the clay on the wheel into bowls, vases, and cups. His apprentice, a young man named Taro, watched intently from the side, eager but tense. Taro had been studying under Master Daigo for several months, but he struggled with perfectionism. Every time he shaped a bowl, he would inspect it obsessively, looking for the smallest imperfection, the tiniest crack, the slightest unevenness. When he found one, he would frown and throw the clay back onto the wheel. Master Daigo never scolded him. He only observed. One day, after hours of work, Taro finally managed to create a bowl that appeared flawless. He smiled with pride as he lifted it from the wheel and placed it beside the others to dry. But as he did, the bowl slipped from his hands and hit the floor. A long crack split across its surface. Taro gasped. "No!" he cried, his voice breaking. "It was perfect. It was finally perfect." Master Daigo looked up from his own work, his expression calm as always. "Ah," he said softly, "so the bowl has found its truth." Taro was confused. "Its truth? Master, it's broken. It's worthless now." Daigo walked over, picked up the cracked bowl, and held it gently in his hands. The crack ran beautifully across the center, like a river winding through a valley. "Tell me," Daigo said, "what is this bowl's purpose? To hold water or food?" Taro replied bitterly. "And can it still do that?" Taro hesitated. "No, the crack will leak." Daigo nodded. "So then, it must find a new purpose. Perhaps it will hold flowers, or simply remind us of the beauty of imperfection." Taro frowned. "But, Master, how can imperfection be beautiful? I joined you to learn perfection." Daigo smiled. "And I'm teaching you to let go of it." He placed the bowl on the table and began melting gold powder into a lacquer. Carefully, with slow and reverent movements, he brushed the golden resin along the crack. The gold shimmered in the light, turning the flaw into something radiant. "This," Daigo said, "is the art of kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. In doing so, we do not hide the damage, we honor it. What was once broken becomes more beautiful for having been mended. The same is true for the heart." Taro watched in silence as the gold filled the crack, transforming the bowl into something entirely new. He could not look away. It was as though the flaw had become the very soul of the object. Daigo continued, his voice calm and meditative. "You see, Taro, life will crack you open again and again. The pressure of expectation, the pain of loss, the weight of imperfection, these are not mistakes. They are teachers. To resist them is to deny your own becoming." He turned to his apprentice. "Perfection is brittle, Taro. It shatters easily. But imperfection, when accepted, becomes the foundation of wisdom and strength. The more you try to control life, the more it slips from your grasp. Let it flow, let it break, let it teach you." Taro lowered his head, realizing that his obsession with flawlessness had kept him from seeing the beauty in the process itself. Every bowl he had thrown away was a lesson he had refused to learn. That evening, after Master Daigo left the workshop, Taro picked up the cracked bowl again. The gold shimmered softly in the lamplight. He ran his fingers along the repaired surface and felt a strange warmth inside him. For the first time, he saw not a broken object, but a vessel of resilience. A reminder that to be imperfect is to be human. Outside, the cherry blossoms drifted down like snow, landing gently on the windowsill. The night air was cool and quiet, broken only by the distant sound of frogs croaking in the fields. Taro sat in silence, the bowl before him. He took a deep breath and smiled. He finally understood that letting go of control was not about carelessness. It was about trust. Trusting that life, like clay, would shape him in ways he could not always predict, trusting that every crack in his heart would one day be filled with gold. He whispered softly to himself, "I will learn to shape, not to perfect." Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Picture yourself as the clay, soft, formless, waiting to be shaped. With each inhale, feel the breath as the potter's hands, steady, patient, compassionate. With each exhale, release the tension of needing to be perfect. If you carry cracks within you, wounds, regrets, or scars, do not hide them. Imagine them filled with light, shimmering like gold. Your imperfections are not your shame. They are your story. Be still. Breathe. You're already enough, exactly as you are. Perfection is an illusion that tightens the heart. Peace comes when you stop trying to hide your cracks and begin to honor them. Every flaw, every wound, every failure is part of your becoming. When you accept yourself as you are, your spirit glows like gold running through the cracks of an old bowl, stronger, more beautiful, and infinitely whole. Story 5: The Lantern Keeper's Silence. Night had descended upon the mountain temple. The sky stretched wide and dark, filled with stars that shimmered like grains of salt scattered across black silk. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying with it the faint sound of temple bells and the scent of sandalwood. At the edge of the temple grounds stood a small wooden hut where a single lantern burned. Its light flickered gently, swaying with the rhythm of the wind. Inside the hut sat an elderly monk named Shinmei, the temple's lantern keeper. His task was simple. Each night, he would light the temple lanterns, and each dawn, he would extinguish them. He had performed this duty for 40 years, never missing a night. Some of the younger monks wondered how he could bear such repetition. Yet Shinmei never seemed bored. His movements were slow and steady, his face calm, his eyes clear. Every night, he would bow to the flame before lighting the lanterns, as though greeting an old friend. One cold autumn evening, a young novice named Haru was assigned to assist Shinmei with the lighting of the lanterns. He was eager to learn, but restless and impatient by nature. As the two walked the path together, Haru tried to fill the silence with chatter. "Master Shinmei," he said, "don't you ever grow tired of doing the same thing every night? Lighting these lamps, one after another, year after year. It seems so dull." Shinmei smiled faintly, but said nothing. He continued walking, holding the flame of his candle carefully against the wind. When they reached the first lantern, Shinmei stopped. He bowed, then lit the wick with a quiet reverence. The flame bloomed softly, casting a warm circle of light that danced in the night air. Haru frowned. "Master, it's just a lantern. Why bow to it?" Shinmei looked at him with gentle eyes. "Because the flame reminds me to bow to life itself," he said. Then he continued walking toward the next lantern. They moved through the temple grounds in silence, lighting one lantern after another. The path wound past the meditation hall, through the courtyard, and down toward the old stone gate. The light from each lantern joined the others until the temple glowed softly against the darkness, like a constellation fallen to earth. But Haru was growing impatient. He wanted to talk, to ask questions, to fill the night with sound. The silence felt heavy, uncomfortable. Finally, he blurted out, "Master, why don't you speak? Every teacher I've met shares wisdom with words." words. You, however, say nothing. Shinmei stopped and looked at him. The light of the lantern flickered across his weathered face, highlighting every wrinkle, a map of quiet years. Haru, he said softly, the moon does not shout to be seen. The river does not argue to be heard. Why should I? The young novice frowned, confused. But how will I learn if you don't teach me? Shinmei turned his gaze toward the mountains. When you still your tongue, he said, you will begin to hear the teachings that never use words. They walked on in silence. Haru tried to still his thoughts, but they raced like wild horses. He found himself frustrated again, thinking of all the things he wanted to say, but could not. When they reached the last lantern, Shinmei handed him the candle. Light it, he said simply. Haru did as instructed. As the flame touched the wick, a wave of warmth passed through him. The soft light reflected in Shinmei's eyes, calm and infinite. Now, the old monk said, listen. Haru waited. The only sounds were the whisper of the wind and the rustle of leaves. At first, it felt like nothing, but slowly he began to hear more. The creak of the wood, the quiet breath of the earth, the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The silence was not empty. It was full. As the minutes passed, Haru began to understand what Shinmei had been teaching all along. He had been seeking wisdom in words, but true understanding was beyond them. In silence, he began to feel the pulse of the world, the unity of all things, the stillness beneath every movement. The silence was not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. Shinmei spoke quietly, almost a whisper. Do you see now, Haru? The lanterns do not speak, yet they illuminate the darkness. The river does not lecture, yet it teaches the meaning of flow. The wind says nothing, yet it moves the mountains. When your heart grows quiet, wisdom enters like light filling an empty room. Haru bowed deeply. The restlessness in his chest had softened, replaced by a quiet warmth that spread through his whole body. He realized that he had been afraid of silence, not because it was empty, but because it reflected everything he had been avoiding within himself. That night, he walked back to his quarters without speaking. The stars above seemed brighter, the air crisper, the sound of his footsteps lighter. For the first time, he felt peace not in answers, but in the space between them. Before dawn, Shinmei returned to extinguish the lanterns. Haru followed quietly behind him. The temple was bathed in moonlight, and the last of the flames flickered softly in the cold morning air. Shinmei bowed again before each lantern, his gestures slow and deliberate. When he reached the final one, he turned to Haru. Remember, he said, light and silence are not opposites. They are companions. One reveals the path, the other reveals the way to walk it. He then blew out the flame, and for a brief moment, the darkness was complete. Yet Haru found it beautiful, because even without light, he could feel its presence lingering, gentle and eternal. Sit quietly now. Close your eyes. Listen, not to the world outside, but to the silence between your breaths. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Notice the stillness that exists when nothing is demanded of you. Silence is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It reflects your peace, your fear, your truth. When you embrace it, you return home to yourself. Stillness is the greatest teacher. In silence, you discover that peace is not something to chase. It's something that was always there, beneath the noise of your thoughts. The art of letting go begins when you stop filling every moment with words, sound, or striving. True calm arises when you learn to simply be, like a lantern glowing quietly in the dark. Story 6: The Tea Master and the Storm. Thunder rumbled softly over the valley, its deep voice echoing between distant mountains. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and earth, the sky painted in dark shades of blue and gray. Inside a small wooden tea house on the hilltop, a lone candle flickered, its flames swaying gently in the humid air. A kettle hissed softly over a low fire, and the rhythmic tapping of rain against the paper walls created a soothing, almost musical sound. Within the tea house sat Master Haquin, a tea master known not only for his delicate skill, but for the peace that seemed to radiate from his presence. Across from him sat a young samurai named Rio, who had come seeking guidance. His face was tense, his posture rigid, his hands clenched in a fist resting on his knees. Outside, the wind began to rise, bending the bamboo and scattering fallen petals from the garden. Rio was a warrior of great discipline, but his heart carried storms of its own. For months, he had been unable to find rest. His thoughts chased him even in dreams. Failures, regrets, fears of losing control. He had come to the team master hoping to learn calmness, to defeat his inner turmoil as he would an enemy in battle. Haquin poured tea into 2 cups, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Steam rose between them, swirling like mist on a mountain lake. "Master," Rio said, breaking the silence, "I came here because I cannot calm my mind. It feels like a storm inside me, restless, violent, unending. I've tried to control it, but the harder I try, the worse it becomes." Haquin looked at him kindly. "And what does one do in a storm, young samurai? Does he command the wind to stop blowing?" Rio frowned. "No, but he can seek shelter." Haquin smiled faintly. "Indeed, but what if the shelter is within you?" The tea master lifted the pot and began to pour tea into Rio's cup. He did not stop when the cup was full. The tea overflowed, spilling across the table and dripping onto the floor. "Master," Rio exclaimed, startled, "you're spilling it." Haquin set the pot down and looked into Rio's eyes. "And you, my son, are like this cup, so full that nothing more can enter. Your mind is overflowing with a need to control, to fix, to master everything. There is no room for peace." He motioned toward the window, where the rain had begun to pour heavily, drumming against the roof like 1,000 tiny drums. "Listen to the storm," he said. Rio turned his head and listened. The wind howled, the rain struck the ground with fury, and the thunder rolled above them. "It's chaotic," Rio said quietly. "Is it?" asked Haquin. "Or is it simply being what it is? Rain, wind, thunder? It is not chaotic to itself, only to your mind. You wish to silence the storm because you fear it. But what if instead you learn to move with it?" Rio looked at the old man, unsure what he meant. Haquin rose, slid open the shoji door, and stepped into the rain without hesitation. The storm soaked his robes instantly, but his face was serene. He turned toward Rio. "Come," he said softly. Rio hesitated, then followed. The cold rain struck his skin, and the wind whipped at his hair. He felt alive, vulnerable, exposed. "Do you feel that?" Haquin asked. This is life, not always gentle, not always calm. It flows perfectly. The rain does not apologize for falling. The wind does not resist its direction. Why then do you fight what you feel? Rio stood silently, the rain running down his face. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel everything: the sting of cold water, the weight of the storm, the sound of thunder vibrating through his chest. He stopped resisting it, and in that surrender, something shifted. The storm was still fierce, but it no longer felt like an enemy. It was simply nature expressing itself. His fear dissolved into awe. Haquin's voice carried over the wind. You cannot calm the storm by commanding it to stop. You can only calm yourself. When you do, even the fiercest wind becomes a song. They stood in silence for a while, letting the storm move through them. Eventually, the thunder softened and the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. Haquin looked up at the sky and smiled. See how naturally it passes? The mind is no different. No storm lasts forever. Rio felt tears mix with the rain on his cheeks, not of sadness, but of release. The storm inside him had finally found peace, not because it had vanished, but because he had learned to let it flow. Later that evening, they sat once again in the tea house. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. A single lantern cast a warm glow on their faces. Rio bowed deeply to the master. Thank you, Master Haquin. I understand now. The storm was never my enemy. It was my teacher. Haquin nodded, pouring fresh tea. Remember this. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the grace to move without resistance. The rain falls, the wind blows, and the wise one moves with both. They drank in silence, listening to the soft dripping of rain from the eaves. The night had grown calm again. In that stillness, Rio found a peace deeper than silence, the peace of surrender. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of rain. Listen to its rhythm, the rise, the fall, the pause. Each drop is a moment, each moment passing perfectly in time. You're not here to control the rain. You're here to listen to it. As you breathe in, imagine yourself standing in the storm, feeling the cool water on your skin. As you exhale, feel the tension wash away. You do not resist the storm, you flow with it. And in flowing, you become free. Peace is not found by fighting life's storms. It is found by embracing them. To let go of stress and tension. Stop trying to force calm and instead allow life to unfold as it will. When you stop resisting what is, you discover that the storm itself was never the problem, only your struggle against it. Let go, breathe, flow. Be like the rain, falling freely, yet always returning to peace. Story 7. The Farmer's Quiet Seasons. The first light of dawn stretched across the valley like a soft blanket of gold. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of wet soil and the faint hum of crickets finishing their night songs. Mist drifted lazily between rows of rice fields, each one shimmering with dew under the rising sun. In the middle of these fields, a farmer named Kichuro moved slowly, his bare feet sinking slightly into the soft earth. He wore a straw hat and carried a wooden rake over his shoulder. The rhythm of his work was calm and unhurried, each step deliberate, each breath deep and full. From a nearby hill, the temple bell rang faintly. The sound rolled across the valley like a wave, gentle yet grounding, calling the morning into being. Kichiro had been tending his small farm for more than 30 years. Through storms and droughts, through lean years and abundant ones, he remained steady. He was known by everyone in the village as the man who never seemed in a hurry. When others complained about the weather, the insects, or the market prices, Kichiro would simply smile and say, "The seasons take care of themselves." One day, a young villager named Daichi came to work with him. Daichi was impatient, always chasing results. He wanted his crops to grow faster, his life to move quicker, his success to come sooner. He admired Kichiro's calm, but could not understand it. "Old man," Daichi said one morning, wiping sweat from his brow, "you move so slowly. The weeds will overtake the crops if you don't hurry." Kichiro smiled softly without looking up. "The weeds have their season too," he said. "Let them grow until it's time to pull them." Daichi frowned, frustrated by the farmer's words. "But how can you be so calm when there's so much to do? The rain is coming. The harvest must be ready. The market will not wait." Kichiro chuckled quietly. "You speak as if life were a race. But tell me, what do you win by running faster than time?" Daichi had no answer. They worked in silence for a while, the sound of rustling stalks and chirping birds filling the air. As the sun rose higher, the heat grew intense. Daichi began to tire, his shoulders aching, his breath quick. Kichiro, however, continued at the same steady pace, his movements smooth and natural. At last, Daichi threw down his rake in frustration. "You don't understand," he said. "If I don't work harder, faster, better, how will I get ahead?" Kichiro looked at him calmly and said, "Ahead of what?" The young man opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. He realized he didn't know. Kichiro gestured toward the fields. "Look closely," he said. "Do you see how the rice grows?" Daichi looked. The rice plants swayed gently in the wind, their green blades dancing in unison. "They do not rush," Kichiro continued. "They do not force their growth. The sun rises and sets, the rain falls, and the soil gives what it can. Everything happens in its own time. If you pull at the stalks, will they grow faster?" Daichi shook his head. "And yet," said Kichiro, "that is what people do with their lives. They pull at time, hoping to stretch it. They rush through seasons, fearing they will fall behind. But life, like the rice, grows in its own rhythm. You cannot rush what is meant to unfold slowly." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Daichi sat beside Kichiro, watching the light fade across the fields. Fireflies began to glow between the stalks, their soft lights flickering like tiny lanterns. Daichi spoke quietly. "Master Kichiro, all my life, I have been trying to get somewhere faster. But when I arrive, I find no peace. I think of what's next, what's more, what's better." Kichiro nodded. "The mind that is always reaching cannot rest. But the one that is patient, it grows like the seasons. Slowly, steadily, without fear." He pointed toward the sky, now painted in shades of purple and gold. "Do you see the sun hurrying to set? No, it moves in harmony with everything else. That is how you must live." Daichi watched the last rays of sunlight vanish beyond the hills and felt something soften inside him. For the first time in years, he stopped thinking of tomorrow. He listened to the night, the wind, the rhythm of crickets. And in that stillness, he understood the farmer's peace. Life was not something to race through, it was something to walk with, step by step, season by season. When morning came again, Daichi rose early. He found Kichiro already in the fields, moving slowly, his rake tracing steady lines in the soil. This time, Daichi did not rush ahead. He matched the old man's pace, breathing with him, working with him. The rhythm of their movements became a kind of meditation, slow, peaceful, alive. As the temple bell rang again, Daichi smiled faintly. The sound no longer reminded him of time passing. It reminded him of presence. He finally understood what Kichiro meant. The seasons take care of themselves, and so must the heart. Take a moment to breathe deeply. Inhale slowly, as if drawing in the scent of fresh earth. Exhale, releasing any need to hurry. Your life has its own seasons, moments of growth, stillness, rain, and sunlight. You cannot rush the spring to bloom, nor hold back the fall of leaves. Everything unfolds when it is ready. Your task is not to force it, but to stay present as it happens. Stress often comes from fighting time, rushing what needs patience, holding on to what must pass. But peace is found in rhythm, in trust, in allowing life to move at its natural pace. When you stop demanding that the seasons obey you, you discover that they were always guiding you gently forward. Story 8. The Bridge of Breath. A cool mist hung over the forest at dawn. The air smelled faintly of cedar and rain. Sunlight filtered softly through the canopy, forming golden beams that shimmered across the moss-covered stones of an old wooden bridge. Beneath it, a river whispered as it flowed gently toward the distant sea. At the center of this bridge stood a monk named Ryokan, his robes damp from the morning dew. He leaned lightly on his staff, eyes half closed, listening, not to the river, not to the wind, but to the rhythm of his own breath. Each inhale was a rising wave. Each exhale, a gentle retreat. The sound of life itself. Ryokan was known for his quiet wisdom and simple life. He lived alone in a small hermitage near the mountains, spending his days tending to his garden, mending his robes, and meditating beside the stream. Villagers often came to him for advice, seeking cures for their restlessness and sorrow. One morning, a young scholar arrived. His name was Kenji. His eyes were sharp but weary, like someone carrying a mind that never stopped spinning. He bowed deeply before Ryokan and said, "Master, my thoughts will not let me rest. I am trapped inside them. Even in meditation, they chase me like shadows. How do I quiet my mind?" Ryokan smiled gently. "Come," he said, pointing to the bridge. "Walk with me." The two began to walk across the bridge, the wood creaking softly beneath their feet. The river below moved steadily, clear and constant. "Do you hear the water?" Ryokan asked. Kenji nodded. "Yes, it never stops moving." "Neither does the mind," Ryokan replied. "But you do not need to silence the river to enjoy its sound. You only need to listen without trying to change it." Kenji frowned. "But Master, every time I sit to meditate, my thoughts overwhelm me. I try to push them away, to stop them, to fight them, but they grow louder." Ryokan stopped walking and turned toward him. "Ah," he said, "then you are trying to dam the river." He knelt down, picking up a fallen leaf from the bridge. "Watch," he said. He placed the leaf on the surface of the water below. It drifted smoothly, carried by the current. "This leaf does not resist," he said. "It rides the flow. Your breath is the same. It is the bridge between body and mind, between noise and stillness. When thoughts arise, do not fight them. Return to the bridge. Return to your breath." Kenji gazed at the water, following the leaf as it floated away. Something inside him softened, though his mind still churned. They stood in silence for a while, the morning breeze brushing their faces. Ryokan closed his eyes and began to speak slowly, rhythmically, each word syncing with his breathing. "When you inhale, you gather the world into you, the air, the light, the scent of rain. When you exhale, you release the world, your worries, your plans, your control. Inhale, receive. Exhale, let go. Do this, and you will find the space between thoughts, the stillness beneath the noise." Kenji tried. His first breath was shallow and hurried. The second was deeper. By the third, he began to notice the cool air entering his nose, the rise of his chest, the warmth leaving his body as he exhaled. The sounds of the forest, birds calling, river flowing, no longer seemed separate from him. Everything moved in rhythm. His thoughts still came, but they no longer dragged him away. They rose and fell like ripples in the water, dissolving naturally. He opened his eyes and looked around. The world seemed softer, quieter. The bridge beneath him no longer felt like wood. It felt like peace itself, connecting two shores of his being, the restless mind and the still heart. As they reached the end of the bridge, Ryokan turned to him. "The bridge you just crossed is not made of wood," he said. "It is your breath. You can cross it at any time. No matter how far your thoughts wander, one breath will always lead you home." Kenji bowed deeply, tears glimmering in his eyes. "Master," he said softly, "for the first time, I feel what silence truly means." Ryokan smiled. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space where sound rests. The breath is that space. Keep walking it. They parted ways. Kenji returned down the path, his mind no longer a battlefield, but a flowing river. With each breath, he felt himself anchored, steady, grounded, free. That night, Ryokan sat again on the bridge under the moonlight, the same river flowing beneath. He listened to the wind through the trees, the hum of insects, the rhythm of his breath, and smiled. The bridge was always there, and it never broke. Close your eyes and imagine standing on that bridge. Feel the gentle wind on your skin, the sound of water beneath you. Take a slow, deep breath in. Hold it gently. Now release it, letting your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, your thoughts drift. Inhale again. Receive the moment. Exhale. Let go of everything else. Your breath is not a task. It is your anchor. Each inhale connects you to life. Each exhale frees you from the need to control it. You do not have to chase calm. You only need to cross the bridge, one breath at a time. The breath is life's most faithful teacher. When you lose your balance, your peace, or your sense of self, return to it. You cannot stop the river of thoughts, but you can learn to float upon it. You cannot control the world, but you can breathe through it. Let the breath be your bridge, from tension to peace, from noise to silence, from self to stillness. Story 9, The Calligrapher's Brush. The afternoon sun slanted through tall paper windows, painting long rectangles of gold across the wooden floor. In the center of the room sat an old man named Master Koji, surrounded by brushes, scrolls, and bowls of deep black ink. The faint scent of ink and sandalwood hung in the air. Outside, cicadas hummed lazily in the summer heat, their steady rhythm merging with the slow, deliberate sound of a brush sliding across paper. Each stroke was alive, fluid, unhurried, graceful. To watch Master Koji write was to witness stillness in motion. A young student named Aya sat nearby, watching her teacher work. She had been studying calligraphy for many months, but grew frustrated with every attempt. Her lines trembled, her ink splattered. The more she tried to perfect each stroke, the more rigid her hand became. She bowed low before her teacher. "Master," she said, "my writing is always flawed. No matter how I practice, my lines do not flow like yours. How do you make them so perfect?" Master Koji smiled, dipping his brush into the ink with slow care. "Perfection," he repeated softly. "Who said my strokes are perfect?" He gestured toward the hanging scrolls that filled the walls, each one a masterpiece, yet each slightly different, some with uneven edges or stray drops of ink. "The beauty," he said, "is not in the control of the brush, but in the freedom of the hand." I have frowned. "But isn't discipline the heart of calligraphy? Shouldn't I try to control the brush?" Koji laughed gently. "Control the brush? No, my child. Learn to dance with it." He motioned for her to sit beside him. "When you try to control the ink, your body stiffens. Your breath shortens. You become separate from a moment. The brush no longer moves with life, it moves with fear. But when you relax and allow the movement to flow through you, the ink begins to sing." He placed a fresh sheet of paper before her. "Try again, but this time do not draw the line, let it draw itself." Aya hesitated, uncertain what that meant. She lifted the brush, took a deep breath, and began her first stroke. Her hand trembled slightly. Koji stopped her. "You are holding your breath," he said. "How can your brush breathe if you do not?" She exhaled. The brush touched the paper again, this time softer. The line that emerged curved imperfectly, but there was a kind of grace in it, a living energy. Koji nodded approvingly. "Better. The hand that breathes is the hand that knows peace." The master then demonstrated. He dipped his brush once more and began to paint a single character. The kanji for mu, which means emptiness. The brush moved in fluid, effortless rhythm, pressing, lifting, turning, all in harmony with his breathing. When he finished, the character was imperfect. A drop of ink had fallen near its base. Aya's eyes widened. "You dropped ink, master." Koji smiled. "Yes." The ink fell where it wished, and now the character has its own story. He turned to her and said softly, "Life is like this brush. The more you try to control it, the more you choke the flow. When you release control, when you breathe and allow, life paints itself through you. The art is not in the hand, it is in the surrender." Aya sat quietly, letting the lesson sink in. She picked up her brush again, feeling the wooden handle warm beneath her fingers. She inhaled deeply, then exhaled slowly. This time, her line moved freely, imperfect, alive, beautiful. Evening fell, and the sound of cicadas softened into the hum of night. The scent of burning incense filled the room. Aya hung her latest scroll beside her teacher's. Under the candlelight, she noticed that although her characters were uneven, they carried something new: ease, spirit, honesty. Koji stood beside her and whispered, "Now your lines breathe." That is enough. Outside, a breeze passed through the open window, fluttering the scrolls gently. The inked characters seemed to dance in the candlelight, silent poetry in motion. Aya bowed deeply, her heart lighter than it had ever been. She finally understood. Mastery was not about control. It was about harmony. The true art of calligraphy, like life, was not to force perfection, but to move with the rhythm of being. Take a moment now to imagine yourself holding that brush. Feel its gentle weight, its balance in your hand. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Now imagine each breath as a stroke of ink. Each inhale draws in possibility. Each exhale releases control. Your life is the paper, your breath the brush. Some strokes will be dark, some light, some trembling. All of them are part of your masterpiece. Do not correct the ink. Let it dry in peace. When you let go of control, grace finds you. The pursuit of perfection is the source of tension. The acceptance of imperfection is the source of flow. Peace is not in mastering the brush, but in letting the brush master you. In surrender, beauty appears naturally, soft, effortless, true. Story 10. The Sound of Bamboo. The night was quiet, wrapped in the soft hush of falling mist. A half-moon hung in the sky, its silver light bathing the temple garden in a dreamlike glow. The bamboo grove behind the temple swayed gently in the breeze, its long green stalks brushing against one another with a hollow, musical clatter. Inside the meditation hall, a single lantern flickered. Beneath it sat an elderly monk named Junsei, his posture straight, his eyes closed, his breathing deep and slow. Every few moments, the wind would pass through the grove again. Clack, 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 the sound of bamboo echoing softly through the night. For most, the noise was pleasant background music. But for Junsei's new apprentice, a young monk named Tai Chi, it was unbearable. Tai Chi had come to the temple seeking peace. Yet peace eluded him. His mind was restless, his thoughts loud. Even the smallest sound could disturb him. Every night during meditation, the wind stirred the bamboo and the sound grated on his nerves. It seemed to mock his efforts at stillness. Clack, clack, clack. Each strike of bamboo against bamboo pulled him away from his breath, back into irritation. One night, he broke his silence. "Master Junsei," he said, his voice tense, "how can I find peace when that sound never stops? It's driving me mad." Junsei opened his eyes slowly and smiled. "Ah," he said, "so it is not the bamboo that disturbs you. It is your mind that refuses to dance with it." Tai Chi frowned. "But the noise is outside me. I can't stop the wind." Junsei rose quietly and gestured for him to follow. Together they stepped out into the moonlit garden. The air was cool and damp. The bamboo grove shimmered with droplets of mist. "Listen," Junsei whispered. The wind came, brushing through the stalks, clack, clack, clack. Junsei closed his eyes. "Do you hear the space between the sounds?" Tai Chi tilted his head. "The space. Yes, said Junsei. The silence between the strikes. That is where peace lives. The sound exists only because of the silence that holds it. One cannot exist without the other. He picked up a small bamboo stick and struck it gently against another. Tap. You see? The sound arises and vanishes, yet the silence remains. The silence is eternal. The sound is just its momentary visitor. Tai Chi frowned again, but when I hear it, I lose my focus. Junsei smiled. Then do not try to escape the sound. Let it become your focus. Listen so deeply that even your thoughts become quiet. Junsei sat cross-legged on the wet grass, motioning for Tai Chi to do the same. Together they sat, surrounded by the whispering bamboo. At first, Tai Chi's mind was noisy. He thought of the sound, of the wind, of his frustration. But gradually, he began to listen, not with his ears, but with his whole being. The clack of bamboo became softer, almost rhythmic. Between each sound, there was a pause, empty, infinite, peaceful. The silence stretched like a river between notes, holding everything gently. He realized that the silence had always been there, beneath every sound, beneath every thought, beneath every breath. He had simply been too focused on the noise to notice. As the wind subsided, he exhaled slowly, a smile forming on his face. I hear it now, Master. The sound and the silence, they are one. Junsei nodded. Yes, the bamboo teaches the same lesson as life. Do not fight the noise. Listen through it. When you truly hear, even chaos becomes calm. They sat until dawn, listening to the rhythm of the world, the song of crickets, the sigh of wind, the heartbeat of silence itself. When morning arrived, the first rays of light filtered through the bamboo grove. Dew clung to every stalk, shining like jewels. Tai Chi stood quietly beside his teacher. The wind blew once more, clack, 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 but this time the sound no longer disturbed him. It was beautiful. It was life itself expressing its moment. Junsei smiled. You have learned the art of listening, not just with your ears, but with your soul. Keep that silence with you wherever you go. From that day on, whenever the wind stirred the bamboo, Tai Chi would smile, bow slightly, and let the sound pass through him like a wave through water. The bamboo no longer clashed, it sang. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. Listen, there are sounds all around you, perhaps faint, perhaps loud. Don't label them as noise. Don't resist them. Instead, listen for the silence beneath them. Between every sound, there is space. Between every thought, there is stillness. That silence is always there, patient, waiting, infinite. When you listen deeply enough, you realize you are never apart from it. Peace is not the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. When you stop fighting the noise and begin to listen to it fully, you discover the harmony that has always existed between sound and silence. In every clack of bamboo, in every breath you take, in every thought that arises, there is peace, if only you listen deeply enough. Story 11. The Fisherman and the Moon's Reflection. The night was calm, the sea like a sheet of glass stretching endlessly beneath a full moon. Its silver light shimmered across the waves, painting the water with threads of white and blue. A small wooden boat drifted quietly, rocking gently with the tide. Inside sat an old fisherman named Kyan. His face was weathered like driftwood, his hands strong but patient as they held the fishing line. He'd spent a lifetime on this sea, long enough to know its moods, its tempers, and its secrets. Above him, the moon glowed bright, reflected perfectly on the water's surface. It looked so real that it seemed he could reach out and catch it. Kyan had fished the same waters for decades. Yet, in his later years, he no longer fished for survival, but for peace. Every night, he rowed out to the open sea to sit in silence, letting the rhythm of the waves quiet his mind. One evening, as he sat in meditation, he noticed a younger fisherman nearby. The man was struggling, his voice filled with frustration. He kept throwing his net again and again, only to pull it back empty. Kyan watched silently for a while before rowing closer. "Good evening, my friend," he said. "The sea seems quiet tonight." The young man grumbled, "Quiet? It's mocking me. I've cast my net a dozen times and still nothing." Kyan smiled softly. "Perhaps the sea gives what it wishes, not what we demand." The younger fisherman sighed, throwing his net once more. As it sank beneath the water, he noticed the bright reflection of the moon shimmering where his net had fallen. "Look," he said suddenly. "Do you see that? The moon's reflection. It looks like treasure beneath the surface. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe there's something down there worth catching." Without waiting, he plunged his hands into the water, trying to grab the glowing shape. But each time he reached for it, the reflection scattered, breaking apart in ripples. The harder he tried, the further it drifted away. Kyan chuckled softly. "You cannot catch the moon," he said. The young man frowned. "Why not? It's right there." Kyan leaned over the edge of his boat and looked into the water. "No," he said gently, "that is not the moon. It is only its reflection. The moon itself is untouched by the waves, no matter how they move. You are chasing what was never truly there." The young man sat back, breathing heavily. His hands were wet and cold. "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Just watch it." Kyan nodded. "Watch, yes, but do not grasp. The beauty of a moon is not in holding it. It is in seeing it clearly without distortion. When the water is still, the reflection is perfect. But when the mind stirs, it ripples and distorts what is true." The young fisherman grew quiet. He looked down at the water again and saw his own face mixed with the moon's reflection, two images shimmering, breaking, reforming with each breath of wind. He realized that the sea was like his mind, constantly moving, never still. His frustration, his effort, his reaching, they were the wind disturbing his inner waters. He sat silently beside Kyan, closing his eyes. Together, they listened to the sea breathe. After a while, the young man noticed that the ripples began to fade. The reflection grew still again. The moon reappeared in perfect clarity, glowing softly on the water's surface. Kyan spoke quietly. "When a mind is calm, truth reflects itself clearly. You do not need to chase peace. You only need to stop disturbing it." The young fisherman nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing. The moon above seemed closer now, though he made no move to reach for it. Hours passed in silence. The tide flowed in and out, the waves whispering softly against the sides of the boats. When dawn finally arrived, streaks of pink and gold spread across the sky, dissolving the moon's reflection. The young fisherman turned to Kyan. "The moon is gone," he said quietly. Kain smiled. "The reflection fades, but the moon remains. Just because you cannot see it does not mean it has vanished. The same is true of peace. It may not always appear clear, but it is always there, above the clouds of your thoughts." As the sun rose, Kain pulled in his empty line and laughed gently. "No fish tonight, but a full heart. The sea always provides, in one way or another." The young man bowed deeply. "You have given me something better than fish, old one. You show me how to see." Kain nodded. "Then let your seeing be like still water, clear, deep, and free from grasping." They rowed back to shore in silence, the sea glittering under the rising sun. Endless, calm, eternal. Take a slow breath. Imagine the moon reflected on a still pond. Its light trembles when the wind stirs, but when the air grows quiet, it becomes whole again. Your mind is that pond. Each worry, each thought is a ripple. You do not have to stop thinking. Only stop chasing the reflections. Sit in stillness. Let the mind settle. When it does, truth reveals itself as effortlessly as the moon on calm water. Peace is not something to catch. It is something to see. When your mind is restless, even truth appears distorted. When you are calm, everything becomes clear without effort. You cannot grasp the moon, but you can learn to reflect it perfectly. Let your mind be still, and the light of truth will shine naturally within you. Story 12. The Traveler's Sandals. The morning sun was rising over a dusty road that wound through the mountains like a thin thread of gold. A warm wind carried the scent of pine and wildflowers, and in the distance, temple bells echoed faintly, marking the start of another day. Along this quiet path walked a traveler named Renji, his worn sandals kicking up little clouds of dust with every step. On his back, he carried a small pack, just enough for food, water, and a blanket. The road was long, but he walked with purpose. He was searching for something, though he could not quite say what. The world was beautiful, but his mind was not at peace. He thought constantly of his destination, of what awaited him beyond the mountains, of what he might gain when the journey was finally over. He barely noticed the path beneath his feet. Renji had been traveling for many months, driven by a restlessness he could not explain. He sought peace, enlightenment, a life without worry. Every temple he visited gave him teachings. Every monk he met gave him advice, but none of it stayed with him for long. His thoughts were always moving ahead, toward the next stop, the next answer, the next truth. One hot afternoon, as he walked through a rocky valley, he felt a sharp pain. Looking down, he saw that one of his sandals had torn. The sole flapped loose, and each step now sent a sting of stone into his heel. He cursed under his breath and sat down beside the road, frustrated. Just then, an old monk appeared, carrying a basket of herbs. He wore no sandals, and his bare feet were dusty and toughened from years of walking. The monk smiled. "You look troubled, traveler." Renji sighed. "My sandal is broken. I can't go on like this. The path is full of stones." The monk nodded. "Ah, yes. The path is always full of stones. But tell me, why do you think you cannot walk without the sandal?" Renji frowned. "Because it hurts. I'll injure my feet. The ground is rough." The monk chuckled softly and sat beside him. "When I was young, I thought the same. So I tried to cover every path with leather so I could walk without pain. But I soon realized it is easier to make my feet strong than to make the whole world soft. Rinji looked puzzled. So, you mean I should walk barefoot? The monk smiled. I mean, you should learn to walk with awareness. When you step without mindfulness, even a grain of sand feels sharp. But when you walk with presence, you find your footing naturally. The stones may remain, but they no longer wound you. He reached into his basket and handed Rinji a small piece of cloth. Here, he said, wrap your foot, not to block the pain, but to remind yourself to step gently. Then he stood and continued down the road, humming softly to himself. Rinji watched him go, still unsure what to make of the monk's words. After resting, Rinji tore a strip from his blanket and wrapped his injured foot as the monk had shown him. Then, slowly, he stood and began to walk again. At first, every step still hurt, but he began to notice something. The warmth of the earth, the texture of the pebbles, the rhythm of his body as he moved. With each step, he breathed deeply, letting go of his frustration and focusing only on the act of walking. Step, breath, step, breath. He began to feel a strange calm spreading through him. The pain did not disappear, but it no longer ruled him. The road was no longer an obstacle. It was a teacher. For the first time, he noticed the small things he had missed. The glimmer of dew on grass, the hum of insects, the way sunlight filtered through the trees. The world had not changed, but he had. When he finally reached the next village, he felt lighter, not because his feet no longer hurt, but because his mind had stopped running ahead of him. That evening, as he washed his feet in a stream, he whispered to himself, "The journey is not about where I'm going. It's about how I walk." The next morning, Rinji placed his broken sandals beside a small shrine by the roadside. He bowed deeply, smiling. A young villager passing by asked him, "Traveler, where are your shoes?" Rinji replied softly, "I no longer need them. I have found the ground." He continued his journey barefoot, his steps steady and unhurried, his mind quiet as the dawn. Each footprint he left behind was a mark of presence, a reminder that peace was not waiting at the destination, but in every step along the way. Close your eyes. Feel the ground beneath you, whether you sit, stand, or lie down. Inhale deeply. Feel the connection to the earth. Exhale slowly. Release your tension into it. Imagine walking slowly, mindfully. Each step is a conversation between you and the ground. The earth supports you always. You do not need a rush. You do not need to escape the path. Every step is already the destination. Peace is not found at the end of the road. It is found in how you walk it. When you move with awareness, even rough paths feel smooth. When you are present, every step becomes sacred. The world will always have stones, but the mindful traveler learns to walk barefoot, and in doing so, feels the softness of the earth beneath even the hardest terrain. Story 13, The Old Tree in the Storm. A vast forest spread across the mountain valley, its canopy alive with birdsong and the rustle of wind through leaves. In the center stood an enormous tree, ancient, gnarled, and proud. Its roots dug deep into the earth. Its branches stretched wide toward the sky. It had stood there for hundreds of years, through countless winters, rains, and seasons of sun. Nearby grew a young bamboo grove, slender, green, and light. The bamboo swayed easily with every passing breeze, bending but never breaking. The tree often looked down at the bamboo and chuckled to itself. "How fragile you are," it said one afternoon as clouds gathered in the distance. "You bend at the slightest wind, while I remain unmoved. That is true strength." The bamboo said nothing. It simply swayed gently, whispering softly in the wind. The great tree, named Jiroku by the villagers, was revered as the protector of the forest. Travelers often rested beneath its shade. Children played at its roots. Even monks from the nearby temple came to meditate under its vast branches. But over time, pride grew in the tree's heart. It had come to see itself as invincible, rooted so firmly that nothing could shake it. The bamboo grove, by contrast, never sought attention. It grew quietly, harmonizing with the rain and the breeze, bowing to both without resistance. That summer, the air was unusually heavy. Birds flew low, and the clouds thickened into dark towers of gray. A storm was coming. By evening, thunder cracked across the sky, and the wind began to roar through the valley. The first drops of rain fell like stones. The old tree braced itself proudly. "I have stood for centuries," it thought. "I will not yield now." The bamboo grove bent low, its slender stalks almost touching the ground. The wind howled, tearing at leaves and branches. The rain became a torrent. "Stand tall, bamboo," the tree shouted over the storm. "Show your strength." But the bamboo only whispered, "To stand is easy. To endure is wiser." The storm raged through the night, relentless. The great tree fought with all its might, resisting every gust, holding firm against the wind. But as the night deepened, the ground beneath it softened with rain. Its mighty roots began to loosen. A sudden bolt of lightning split the sky, and with a thunderous crack, the old tree fell, its roots torn from the earth. The forest shook as it hit the ground. When dawn came, the storm had passed. The bamboo grove stood tall again, glistening with dew, unbroken. The fallen tree lay beside it, silent. When the sun rose, the bamboo whispered softly to the fallen tree, "Old friend, your strength was great, but it became your burden. You stood against the storm while I flowed with it. In yielding, I found endurance. In bending, I remained unbroken." The tree, even in its stillness, seemed to understand. Its pride had kept it rigid, and rigidity had brought its fall. Later that morning, monks from the nearby temple came to the forest. They bowed before the fallen giant, murmuring prayers of gratitude. One of them turned to the bamboo and said, "See how nature teaches us. The strong resist and break, but the flexible endure." They took pieces of the tree to build a bench near the temple garden, so that travelers might sit beneath the shade of the bamboo grove, learning the same lesson the tree had finally understood. Years later, small sprouts began to grow from the decayed wood of the fallen tree. The forest had taken it back into its cycle. Its strength had become nourishment, its fall a gift. The bamboo still stood nearby, bending and swaying in the wind, its leaves whispering softly like a song of forgiveness and peace. Nature had balanced itself once again. The storm had not destroyed the forest. It had revealed its wisdom. That true strength is not in standing firm against life, but in flowing with it. Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath. Imagine standing in a gentle breeze. Feel your body soften, sway slightly like bamboo in the wind. Now imagine a storm, strong, heavy, wild. Do you resist it, or do you move with it? Inhale deeply. Exhale and release your tension. You do not need to fight every gust that life sends your way. Let yourself bend. Let yourself yield. You will not break. When the storm passes, you will rise again, stronger, lighter, freer. True resilience comes not from resistance, but from surrender. The rigid mind cracks under pressure, while the flexible spirit endures. To let go of stress and tension, stop fighting every storm. Instead, learn to move with life's winds, trusting that calm will return. The bamboo teaches us, the softer you become, the stronger you truly are. Story 14, The Candle and the Cave. Deep within the mountains lay an old cave, carved by centuries of wind and rain. The air inside was cool and damp, and the silence was so complete that it seemed to breathe. When one entered, even the faintest sound, the scrape of a sandal, the drip of water from the ceiling, echoed like a heartbeat. At the mouth of the cave, a small candle burned. Its single flame flickered gently, casting a warm, golden glow that barely touched the darkness around it. Sitting beside it was a wandering monk named Shun. His robe was simple, his face calm, his gaze fixed on the wavering flame. He had come to the cave to meditate, to face the one thing most people avoid: silence without end and darkness without shape. For many years, Shun had taught others the art of calm and mindfulness. Yet, lately, a heaviness had taken root in his heart. The world outside had become loud, hurried, full of striving. Even among his students, he noticed restlessness. Everyone seeking light, but no one willing to enter the dark. So Shun had come here, to this lonely cave, with nothing but a candle and his breath. He sat in stillness for hours, watching the flame dance. But as night deepened, his eyes grew tired. The flame began to tremble more violently in the wind that crept through the cave's cracks. Finally, with a faint hiss, it went out. Darkness swallowed the cave whole. For the first time in many years, Shun felt fear, the kind that lives in the body, not the mind. His breath quickened, and his thoughts began to race. What if I lose my way in the dark? He whispered to himself. What if the light never returns? He fumbled for the matches in his robe, his fingers trembling. But after a few moments, he stopped. Slowly, he placed them back down. No, he said quietly. Perhaps I should meet the darkness before I try to change it. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, even though the darkness was already absolute. The air was cool against his skin. He could hear water dripping somewhere deeper in the cave. His heartbeat echoed softly in his ears. He realized that the darkness was not fighting him. It was simply there, vast, still patient. It did not demand anything of him. It did not judge. He began to relax. His breath slowed. With each exhale, his fear lessened. With each inhale, the darkness seemed less like an enemy and more like an old friend. After some time, minutes or hours, he could not tell, Shun noticed something remarkable. Even without the candle, he could see in a different way. His awareness sharpened. The faint outlines of the cave walls appeared through the dim light filtering from outside. He realized the truth. The darkness had not taken away his vision. It had simply invited him to see differently. He laughed softly. All this time, I thought I needed light to find peace. But peace is not found in light or dark. It is found in acceptance. He reached for the candle again, but this time not out of fear. He struck the match and lit the wick. The flame bloomed, small and steady. The cave looked different now, less threatening, more beautiful. The shadows seemed to move with the light, not against it. The darkness had not vanished. It had become part of the dance. And in that moment, Shun understood. Light and darkness are not opposites. They complete one another. The candle does not chase the dark away. It simply reveals that peace exists in both. Shun remained in the cave until dawn. When the first rays of sunlight reached the mouth of the cave, he smiled, gently cupping the flame in his hands before blowing it out. As he stepped into the morning light, he bowed to the cave behind him. "Thank you," he whispered. "You showed me what light never could." The wind carried his words away. The mountain was silent again, but within him there was clarity, a still, steady glow that needed no candle to shine. From that day on, when his students asked how to find peace amid chaos, he told them, peace is not the candle, it is the space that holds both the flame and the dark. Sit with what you fear until you see it clearly. That is illumination. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in that cave. The darkness surrounds you, soft, cool, endless. Take a deep breath. Inhale the stillness. Exhale the tension. You are safe. You do not need to light a candle yet. Just breathe and listen. Now, when you are ready, imagine a small flame appearing before you. Steady, calm. See how the darkness no longer threatens it. The light does not fight the dark. It rests within it. So too can you hold both, the shadows of your fears and the light of your awareness, without resistance. We often run from our inner darkness, believing peace lives only in the light. But true peace is found when we sit with the dark and learn to see through it. Light and shadow are not enemies. They are partners in understanding. To let go of tension, you must stop fearing your inner night. When you embrace both the light of awareness and the darkness of stillness, your spirit glows quietly from within, unshaken, unafraid, whole. Story 15, The Stone in the Stream. In a quiet forest clearing, a small stream wound its way between moss-covered rocks. The water was crystal clear, moving gently beneath the shade of tall cedar trees. Sunlight filtered through the branches in shifting patterns, turning the surface of the stream into a dance of gold and silver. At the heart of the stream lay a single large stone. Smooth on one side, rough on the other, it had rested there for generations, unmoved by the current that flowed endlessly around it. Birds perched nearby, and sometimes deer came to drink from the water. The stone watched it all in silence. For centuries, the stone had been proud of its strength. It had seen storms, floods, and the passing of countless seasons, yet it remained firm. I endure, it thought. Nothing can move me. But over the years, the water continued to flow, soft, steady, tireless. It never fought the stone, never struck it with violence. It simply touched it again and again in gentle persistence. Downstream, a young monk named Tenzin often came to the stream to meditate. He loved the sound of water, the constant murmuring that seemed to wash the mind clean. One day, he noticed something subtle. The stone's sharp edges were slowly wearing away. He knelt beside it and smiled. "You've grown wiser," he whispered. The stone, if it could speak, might have replied, "Wiser? I am being erased." It had once taken pride in its hardness. Now its body was smaller, its shape softer. It felt the current smoothing its once sharp corners day after day. When Tenzin returned, he placed his hand upon the stone and said, "Do you resist the water, or do you let it pass?" The stone, deep in its silence, did not answer. But within, it felt both pride and sorrow. The water was changing it, whether it wished it or not. That evening, Tenzin returned to the temple and shared his observation with his teacher, Master Kido. The old master nodded. "That stone is all of us," he said. "Life's flow wears us down, not to destroy us, but to make us smooth. Resistance hardens the heart. Patience polishes it." The next morning, Tenzin came again to sit beside the stream. He watched the water swirl around the stone, unhurried, faithful, eternal. Over many months, the stone continued to change. Where once it had been jagged, it was now round and gleaming under the sunlight. Tenzin would often speak softly to it as part of his meditation. "You have learned the art of letting go," he said one day. And in his heart, he realized the truth. Strength is not about refusing to be changed. It is about allowing change to refine you. The stone's beauty had not come from defiance, but from surrender. He began to see the same lesson in his own practice. The more he tried to master his thoughts, the more frustrated he became. But when he let the flow of the moment move through him, breath after breath, his mind softened like the stone. Peace was not found by holding his ground, but by allowing life to polish him. Years passed. The stone remained in the stream, smaller now, yet more luminous than ever. The current glided around it like silk. It no longer fought the flow. It was part of the flow. The monk, now old himself, returned to the same spot. He sat beside the stream and smiled at the stone that had become his teacher. "The water never rushed you," he said. "It simply loved you until you softened." A breeze passed through the forest. The surface of the stream shimmered. For a moment, Tenzin felt that he and the stone and the water were not three things, but one. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling time dissolve into the endless rhythm of the flowing stream. Close your eyes. Imagine a stream flowing gently before you. Hear the soft trickle of water over smooth stones. Now imagine a single rock resting in that current, strong but still. With every passing moment, the water moves around it, patient and kind. Breathe in deeply. As you exhale, imagine your own rough edges softening. Let each breath be a current washing over you. You do not need to fight the flow of life. Let it shape you. Let it polish you. Let it carry away your resistance. Time and patience are the greatest teachers. What force cannot break, gentleness can transform. When you resist life's flow, you remain jagged. When you allow it to move through you, you become smooth, peaceful, radiant whole. The stone teaches us this. To let go is not to weaken, but to trust the current that carries you toward becoming who you are meant to be. Story 16. The Painter of the Sky. High above a quiet valley, morning mist rolled gently over the peaks. The air was cool and smelled of pine and rain-soaked earth. As the first light of dawn touched the clouds, the sky turned into a vast canvas, streaks of pink, orange, and gold unfolding in slow, deliberate strokes. On a narrow ridge sat a man with a bundle of brushes and scrolls beside him. His name was Erida, once known throughout the region as the painter of the sky. For years, people had traveled great distances to watch him paint. His landscapes captured the heart of nature, the serenity of rivers, the courage of mountains, the silence of snow. But lately, Erida had stopped painting. His hands trembled when he held a brush, and his heart felt heavy. He no longer trusted his art or himself. Erida had lost something he couldn't name. Each time he tried to paint, his strokes felt forced. His lines stiff, his colors dull. The more he tried to create, the further beauty slipped away. One morning, frustrated and hollow, he climbed into the mountains to be alone. He carried his tools, but had no plan. He wanted silence, perhaps clarity, or perhaps nothing at all. At the mountain's peak, he found a small hut. An old monk sat outside, brewing tea over a small fire. The man looked up and smiled. "You look like a cloud trying to paint itself," he said. Erida blinked. "What do you mean?" The monk poured 2 cups of tea. "You're too full of sky to see its color." They sat in silence for a while, sipping tea and watching the sun rise higher. The clouds shifted slowly, changing shape and hue. Finally, the monk asked, "Why have you come here, painter?" Erida sighed. "My art has left me. I used to feel the world move through me when I painted, the wind, the rivers, the light, but now I feel nothing. My hand no longer listens to my heart." The monk smiled gently. You have forgotten the difference between painting the sky and trying to own it." Erida frowned. "Own it? Yes," said the monk. "You wish to capture the sky, to hold its colors, its form, its movement. But the sky is never still. It cannot be held. The more you try to trap it, the more it escapes. You must let the sky paint through you." He picked up a small twig and dipped it in tea, then brushed it lightly against the ground. A faint line of moisture appeared, catching the light. "See? The tea will fade, but the act remains." Creation is not about permanence. It is about presence. Erida stayed silent, staring at the horizon. The sky above him was constantly changing. Every moment a new painting, every breath a new shade. He realized that he had spent years trying to make his art last, rather than allowing it to live. He whispered, "I wanted my work to be remembered." The monk nodded. "Then you painted for others, not for the sky. But the sky does not ask to be remembered. It simply exists moment by moment. Be like that. Pay not to preserve, but to experience." Something in Erida's chest loosened. He took out his brush and a small sheet of rice paper. He looked up at the sky again, the colors shifting softly like breath. Then, without thinking, he began to paint. He did not plan. He did not correct. He simply followed the rhythm of his hand, the pulse of the world. His brush danced. His breath flowed. When he finally stopped, he looked down at what he had made. It was imperfect, his lines uneven, his colors wild, but the painting felt alive. The monk smiled. "Now you have remembered." Erida bowed deeply. "Thank you, master. I understand now. The sky was never lost. I only stopped looking. That evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Arida packed his things and began the walk down to the valley. He no longer felt empty. He no longer needed perfection. When he returned to his village, people once again admired his paintings, but he no longer sought their praise. Sometimes he gave his work away. Sometimes he painted only in the sand, letting the wind erase it minutes later. He had found peace in the act, not the outcome. When asked what had changed, he would smile and say, "I stopped painting the sky. I'll let the sky paint me." Take a slow breath. Imagine holding a brush, but instead of trying to control it, you let your hand move freely. Inhale the color of the moment, whatever feeling fills you. Exhale the need to make it perfect. You're not here to create masterpieces. You are here to experience the act of creation itself. The brush meeting paper, the heart meeting life. The sky paints itself through you in every breath, every word, every heartbeat. You are both the artist and the canvas. Peace and creativity come from surrender, not control. When you stop forcing life to fit your design, you realize that existence itself is art in motion. Let go of the need for perfection. Let life move through you, unedited, unresisted. You are not separate from the sky. You are its reflection, its brushstroke, its color. Story 17, The Monk and the Empty Bowl. A cool morning mist rolled through the mountain paths, curling around the rooftops of a small Zen temple. The sound of distant bells echoed softly, mingling with the chirping of sparrows perched on moss-covered walls. The sun was only beginning to rise, casting a pale gold light across the courtyard. At the gate stood a young monk named Hiro. In his hands, he carried an empty wooden bowl polished smooth by years of use. Today was Takuhatsu, the day monks walked into the village to collect food offerings. It was a simple ritual, a practice of humility and gratitude. But for Hiro, it had become a source of quiet shame. Hiro had joined the temple 2 years earlier, leaving behind a life of comfort. He had been a merchant's son, used to fine meals, silken robes, and praise. The simplicity of temple life had humbled him, but not entirely softened his pride. Each time he walked into the village with his empty bowl, a small voice inside whispered, "You are begging. You are weak." The other monks walked with calm dignity, their faces serene, their eyes lowered. Hiro, however, felt exposed and uneasy. He envied their stillness, their ease with emptiness. One morning, he confessed his struggle to the abbot, an elderly monk named Master Tenrin. "Master," he said, "I feel ashamed when I hold this bowl. It reminds me of what I've lost." Tenrin smiled gently. "Then you're holding it the wrong way." The next day, Tenrin asked Hiro to accompany him to the village. They walked together down the narrow path, the sound of their sandals brushing softly against the stones. When they reached the marketplace, the smell of fresh bread and steaming rice filled the air. Villagers greeted the monks warmly, bowing and offering small portions of food. Tenrin received each gift with a humble nod, his eyes full of gratitude. Hiro, on the other hand, found his mind clouded with comparison. Who gave him more? Who ignored him? Who looked away? As they walked back toward the temple, Tenrin stopped by the river and motioned for Hiro to sit. He took Hiro's bowl gently from his hands and held it up to the sunlight. "Look," he said. "What do you see?" Hiro squinted. "An empty bowl." "Are you sure?" Tenrin asked. "Look again." Hiro stared harder. The sunlight reflected off the smooth surface, filling the bowl with golden light. Tenrin smiled. "You see? The bowl is not empty. It holds light. It holds space. And because it is open, it can receive whatever is given. If it were full, there would be no room for blessing." He placed the bowl back into Hiro's hands. "The same is true for your heart." As they walked on, Hiro thought about his teacher's words. He realized that all his life, he had been trying to fill himself with possessions, achievements, pride. Even when he joined the temple, he had carried invisible weight within him. The desire to be seen as wise, as good, as spiritual. Now he understood. The bowl was not a symbol of weakness, but of freedom. When they reached the temple, Tenrin said, "Hiro, tomorrow you will walk again into the village. But this time, do not ask for food. Simply walk, holding your bowl as if it already contains all you need." The next morning, Hiro did as he was told. He walked slowly through the village, bowing to each person he passed. Some gave rice, some gave bread, some gave only a smile. With each step, gratitude filled him, not for what he received, but for the act of receiving itself. By the time he returned to the temple, his bowl was half full, but his heart overflowed. That evening, he sat quietly beside Tenrin and whispered, "Master, today I carried nothing, yet I felt full." Tenrin nodded. "Yes, when the bowl is empty, it reflects the sky. When the heart is open, it reflects peace." As night fell, Hiro placed his bowl beside his sleeping mat and gazed at it by candlelight. Its round surface shimmered, a perfect mirror of the flame. He smiled softly. For the first time, he understood the meaning of true wealth, not in possession, but in openness. He whispered a short prayer. "May I remain empty, so I may be filled. May I remain open, so I may give. May I remain humble, so I may see clearly." Outside, the wind rustled the temple's wind chimes, each note soft and fleeting, like blessings passing through an open heart. Close your eyes. Imagine holding an empty bowl in your hands. Inhale deeply. Feel the air fill your lungs. Exhale slowly. Feel the space that remains. The bowl represents your heart. Open, waiting, peaceful. It is not lack, it is readiness. You do not need to cling to what you have. You do not need to grasp what is next. Simply hold your bowl to the light and trust that what is needed will come. True peace is not found in fullness, but in emptiness. When you let go of pride, of control, of possession, you make room for gratitude, compassion, and clarity. The empty bowl teaches us this. To receive, one must first open. To be filled, one must first let go. Story 18, The Shepherd and the Wind. Across a wide plain of golden grass, the evening sun poured its last light over rolling hills. The air shimmered softly, alive with the hum of insects and the distant cry of birds returning home. The wind moved gently through the valley, bending the grass like waves on a quiet sea. A young shepherd named Vino stood on a ridge, his cloak fluttering behind him. Below, his small flock of sheep grazed lazily, their bells chiming faintly with every step. He leaned on his staff and listen to the wind. To anyone else, it was just air moving over land, but to Eno, it was a voice. For as long as he could remember, the wind had been his only companion on these lonely plains. But lately, its voice had changed. It had grown fierce, unpredictable, and cold. Eno had once trusted the wind completely. It had guided him to pastures, warned him of approaching storms, and whispered directions through the night. But over the past few weeks, the weather had turned erratic. One day, scorching heat. The next, sudden gales that sent dust spiraling into the air. He began to doubt himself and the wind he once trusted. "Why do you torment me?" he muttered one evening as gusts whipped through the hills. "You used to lead me. Now you scatter my flock and cloud my path." An old hermit who lived nearby in a cave overheard his words. The hermit appeared rarely, like a shadow blending with the land. That night, he stepped into Eno's campfire glow and spoke. "You speak to the wind as if it owes you calm," the hermit said. "But tell me, shepherd, is the wind your servant or your teacher?" Eno frowned. "I do not need lessons. I need peace. The wind will not let me rest." The hermit smiled, sitting beside the fire. "Peace is not given when the wind stops blowing. It comes when you learn to move with it." Eno shook his head. "How can I move with something I cannot see?" The old man pointed upward. "Do you see the grass bending before the gusts? Do you see the clouds shifting, the smoke from your fire twisting and dancing? The wind is invisible, yes, but its presence is revealed through what it touches. So too is the guidance of life." Eno looked at the fire, watching the flames flicker in the breeze. "You mean the wind does not work against me?" The hermit chuckled softly. "It never did. It is your resistance that creates the storm." He tossed a handful of herbs into the fire. The smoke spiraled upward, curling gently before dispersing into the air. "When you trust the wind," the hermit said, "you learn the art of surrender. When you fight it, you become lost." The next morning, Eno woke before dawn. The air was cool and still. He looked over the hills, watching the first light stretch across the plain. When the wind began to stir, he no longer cursed it. He closed his eyes and felt it move over his skin, soft, strong, unpredictable. Instead of resisting, he let it guide him. He followed the breeze as it drifted down the valley, his flock trailing behind. The path was unfamiliar, but he trusted it. After an hour of walking, the wind carried him to a hidden meadow, a lush field of wild grass and clean water, shielded by cliffs from the harsh sun. He smiled, understanding. The wind had not abandoned him. It had been leading him here all along, but through a route he could not have chosen on his own. That evening, as he lay beneath the stars, he whispered, "You are not chaos. You are the rhythm of the world. My task is not to control you, but to listen." The wind answered in a soft sigh through the grass, and Eno felt something deep within him settle into peace. From that day on, Eno stopped fighting the weather. When storms came, he moved with them. When the air grew still, he waited patiently. His flock thrived, and so did his heart. When travelers passed through the valley, they often saw him standing on the ridges, eyes closed, listening to the wind as though it were speaking directly to him. And when asked how he always seemed to know where to go, he would smile and say, "I don't guide the wind. The wind guides me." Take a deep breath. Feel the air enter your lungs, cool, invisible, alive. Now exhale, letting it leave gently. The breath is the wind within you, the same force that moves the clouds, stirs the ocean, bends the grass. When life becomes turbulent, remember, the wind is not against you. It moves you, reshapes you, teaches you to let go. You cannot see it, but you can feel its direction. Trust it. Let it lead you to the meadows you cannot yet imagine. Control is an illusion. The more you resist life's winds, the more chaos you create within. Peace comes not from mastering the wind, but from listening to it, trusting that even unseen forces can guide you exactly where you need to be. Let go of fear, open your heart, and move as the wind moves, freely, gracefully, without resistance. Story 20. The Potter and the Sky Mirror. The afternoon sun hung low over the village, turning the clay roofs a warm copper hue. A thin column of smoke rose from a small pottery workshop at the edge of town, where the scent of earth and fire mingled in the air. Inside, the rhythmic sound of a wheel spinning filled the space. A slow, hypnotic were accompanied by the quiet hum of focus. At the center of the room sat Master Hina, a potter of nearly 70 years. Her hands were steady, shaped by decades of practice. Each movement was slow and deliberate, pressing, turning, lifting. Around her, shells of bowls, vases, and jars gleamed softly in the golden light. Near the door stood a young apprentice named Akio, watching anxiously as the master shaped yet another piece of clay. His own attempts had failed again that morning. Cracked bowls, uneven rims, glazes too thick or too thin. He felt frustration rising in him like heat from the kiln. Akio had been learning from Master Hina for 6 months. He was gifted with energy but lacked patience. He wanted to master pottery quickly, to shape beauty as easily as the master did. Every failed attempt gnawed at him. Each imperfection felt like proof that he was unworthy. That day, he sighed heavily and muttered, "No matter how much I try, my hands betray me." Without looking up, Hina said calmly, "It's not your hands that rush, it's your heart." Akio frowned. "But master, the clay dries before I finish. The kiln cracks my work. The process is so slow. I just want it to be perfect." Hina stopped the wheel and looked at him with kind, knowing eyes. "Ah," she said, "you wish for the pot to mirror the sky before the water has even cleared." Hina motioned for him to follow her outside. They walked to the back of the workshop, where a small pond reflected the sky above. The surface shimmered in the breeze, ripples distorting the reflection of clouds and sunlight. "Tell me," she said, "can you see the sky clearly in this water?" Akio shook his head. "No, master. The ripples blur everything." Hina nodded. "Now wait." They stood in silence. The wind eased. The water settled. Slowly, the reflection became sharp and still. The clouds, the sun, even the smallest bird in flight mirrored perfectly on the pond surface. When the water is still, Hina said softly, "It reflects the sky without effort." The same is true for the heart. When you rush, your inner water ripples, and the clay mirrors your restlessness. But when you breathe and let time move through you, your work will reflect the calmness of your spirit. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "The secret of pottery is not fire or clay. It is patience. Let the process teach you. Do not demand that it obey you. That evening, Accio returned to the wheel. He took a deep breath, remembering the stillness of the pond. As he began to shape the clay, he matched his breath to the turning rhythm. Inhale, press gently. Exhale, lift slowly. He stopped forcing the form to appear. He let the clay guide him, moving with it instead of against it. Time seemed to slow. The noise in his mind faded. When he finished, he looked down and saw a bowl smooth and simple, modest yet beautiful. The next morning, he showed it to Hina. She examined it carefully, then smiled. "The clay has learned your calm," she said, "and you have learned to wait." Days turned to weeks. Akio's skill grew, but more importantly, his patience deepened. He began to enjoy the process itself. The feel of the spinning wheel, the scent of wet earth, the quiet before opening the kiln. Each piece became less about perfection and more about presence. He understood now that the pot was not separate from the potter. It was a reflection of the heart. One evening, after firing his newest creation, Accio carried the cooled bowl outside. The glaze had formed a soft sheen, pale blue with faint streaks of white. He set it beside the pond where he had once stood with his master. The bowl's surface reflected the same sky that floated above him, the clouds, the moon, the stillness. It looked, for a moment, as if the heavens themselves rested in his hands. Hina joined him quietly and whispered, "Do you see, Accio? The bowl no longer holds clay, it holds peace. That is the work of true creation." He bowed deeply. Then, "Master, I no longer need to seek perfection. I only need to keep my heart still." Hina smiled. "And when your heart is still, even the sky will choose to be reflected within you." Close your eyes. Take a slow breath in. Feel the cool air fill your chest. Exhale softly, letting your inner ripples settle. Your life, too, is a pond. Every thought, every worry is a small stone tossed into its surface. Do not rush to calm it, just wait. Stillness will return on its own. When your heart grows quiet, life begins to mirror peace back to you. What you shape in the world will always reflect what you carry inside. Peace is patience in motion. The more you rush toward calm, the further it drifts. When you allow stillness to arise naturally, beauty forms on its own, effortless, perfect in its imperfection. Like the clay, your life takes shape through patience, breath, and time. Let go of control, and you will see that the sky has always been waiting to reflect itself in your still heart. Story 20. The Ferryman and the Two Shores. Morning mist rose from a wide, slow-moving river. The air was cool, scented faintly with lotus and silt. The water stretched endlessly in both directions, its surface so smooth that it reflected the sky like a great mirror. Blue above, blue below, separated only by the faint shimmer of light. In the center of this calm scene was an old wooden ferry boat, tethered to the dock by a single rope. Beside it stood the ferryman, Tao, a man with silver hair and quiet eyes. He had spent his entire life on this river, carrying travelers from one shore to the other. Each day, he rowed in silence, feeling the rhythm of the water and the creak of the oarlocks. The journey took only a few minutes, yet in that brief passage, he often saw people change, arriving anxious and hurried, departing calm and thoughtful. The river, he knew, was a teacher disguised as water. One morning, as Tao was polishing his oars, a young scholar approached the ferry. The man's robes were fine, his expression proud yet troubled. "Old man," he said, "I must reach the far shore quickly. I have important business at the monastery across the river." Tao nodded and gestured for him to board. They pushed off quietly, the boat gliding into the mist. The scholar fidgeted, tapping his fingers on his knee. "Can you not row faster?" he asked impatiently. Tao smiled faintly. "The river sets its own pace. To fight, it would only tire us both." The scholar sighed. "You speak like one who has never known ambition. I have no time to drift." The ferryman dipped his oar into the water again, each stroke slow and steady. And yet he said softly, "You are already drifting, only backward." The scholar frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Tao pointed toward the reflection in the water. The scholar looked down and saw his own face, distorted by ripples. "You hurry to reach the other shore," Tao said, "but the current of your thoughts keeps pulling you away. You row hard with your arms, but the river inside your mind flows in the opposite direction." The scholar scoffed. "I am not here for riddles. I have spent years studying enlightenment. The masters say peace lies across the river, beyond this world of illusion." Tao nodded. "And yet you have crossed this river many times before?" "Yes, of course," the scholar replied. "Then tell me," said Tao, "has the water ever been different?" The scholar paused. The mist thickened around them. He could no longer see either shore, only endless water. Tao continued, "Each day I carry travelers from one side to the other. Some seek work, some seek love, some seek God. They all believe peace lives on the far bank. But when they arrive, they find another journey waiting. The truth is simple. There are not two shores. The crossing itself is home." The scholar looked into the mist. For the first time, he noticed the beauty of the river, the gentle sway of the boat, the rhythm of the oars dipping into water, the sound of his own breath blending with the ripples. He realized that his constant striving, his endless searching for peace, had blinded him to the peace already surrounding him. He looked up. "So there is no other shore?" Tao smiled. "There is, and there isn't. When you see the river clearly, you understand that both shores and the crossing are the same. Life and death, joy and sorrow, beginning and end. They are one current flowing in both directions." The scholar bowed his head, humbled. The ferryman's words were simple, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime's truth. As the mist began to thin, the far bank came into view. The scholar could see the monastery's bell tower glinting in the sunlight. He felt no rush to reach it now. Each moment on the water was already complete. When the boat touched the shore, Tao said quietly, "Remember, young scholar, peace is not across the river. It flows beneath your feet even now." The scholar stepped onto the bank and turned to thank the ferryman, but Tao was already untying the boat for another journey. The water rippled gently around him, light shimmering like liquid glass. "Will you ever cross yourself?" the scholar called out. Tao smiled. "I already have, every time I row." As the boat drifted away, the scholar stood in silence, the ferryman's words echoing in his heart. For the first time, he understood that enlightenment was not a destination to reach, but a way of seeing, the realization that every breath, every step, every ripple is already part of the whole. The river whispered softly against the shore, and he bowed deeply, his reflection joining the sky and the water. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself sitting in that small wooden boat. The river is calm. The mist is soft. Breathe in slowly, feeling the gentle movement beneath you. Breathe out, letting your thoughts drift away with the current. You do not need to row toward peace. You're already floating in it. Every moment is the river, each breath a ripple on its surface. The journey and the destination are one. The search for peace often blinds us to the peace that is already present. There are no two shores, only the ever-flowing river of life. When you stop rowing against the current, you discover that you are never lost. The act of living, of breathing, of being is itself the crossing. To let go of stress and tension, stop striving to reach the far shore. Look around. You're already home. The moon hangs high over the temple garden. The air is still, and the sound of wind chimes drifts softly through the night. A thin line of incense smoke rises into the darkness, curling and disappearing into the unseen sky. The pond below mirrors the moon perfectly. Two circles of light, one in the heavens and one upon the earth. You sit here at the end of the journey. The river has been crossed. The bamboo grove has whispered its wisdom. The candle, the brush, the wind, all have spoken. And now there is only silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of understanding. Throughout these 20 stories, you have walked many paths, some in shadow, some in light. You have sat with monks, travelers, farmers, artists, and children. Each taught a piece of the same lesson. Peace is not found by reaching outward, but by softening inward. You learn to listen to the sound of bamboo and the silence between each strike. You walked barefoot like the traveler, finding comfort in the earth itself. You watched the moon's reflection on the water, realizing that clarity comes not from grasping, but from stillness. You stood as the bamboo stood, yielding, flexible, unbroken. You let the river teach you that even flowing chaos has order. And through it all, you returned again and again to one truth. Letting go is not losing, it is returning. The essence of letting go. Letting go does not mean abandoning life or effort. It means releasing the tightness with which you cling to what must change. It means allowing the seasons to move through you as they do through the earth. It means breathing in without fear of exhaling. The world teaches us to hold, to grasp, to chase, to own, to secure. But the way of Zen teaches the opposite, that freedom comes from release, that beauty is born of impermanence, and that love flows best when it is not caged. When you let go, you do not fall, you float. You do not lose, you return to balance. You do not become empty, you become vast. The still point, close your eyes for a moment. Feel your breath. Inhale, cool air entering, calm and gentle. Exhale, warm air leaving, carrying away what no longer serves. Notice how your breath moves without your control, how your heart beats without command. Life sustains itself through surrender. Even the stars burn by letting go of their own light. This is the art of stillness, not to stop moving, but to move without resistance. To walk through the world as the wind does, touching everything, clinging to nothing. Let the mind rest where it stands. Let the body soften where it sits. There is no need to chase calm. You're already standing in it. The unity of all teachings. The farmer taught patience with the seasons. The monk taught you to breathe as the bridge between body and soul. The calligrapher revealed beauty in imperfection. The fisherman showed that chasing illusions disturbs the truth beneath. The potter proved that patience reveals reflection. The ferryman reminded you that there are no two shores, only the river. All were fragments of one mirror, the self seeing itself. You are the bamboo that bends, the water that flows, the candle that burns, the clay that takes shape. You are the breath, the silence, and the sound between. Everything you sought through these stories was never outside you. It was always waiting in the still center of your being. And now, as you arrive at the end, you see there was never a destination. The end is the beginning. The path circles back to where you sit now, breathing, aware, complete. Take one final deep breath. Let it travel through your whole body, softening the jaw, the shoulders, the hands, the heart. Feel the weight you've carried slowly dissolve like morning mist. Now imagine yourself standing beside the river of your life. You hold a handful of leaves, your worries, your doubts, your expectations. The water moves slowly, patient and welcoming. When you are ready, open your hands. Watch the leaves float away, turning gently in the current until they are gone. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to pull them back. The current knows where to take them. And you remain lighter, freer, still. Breathe. Inhale peace. Exhale release. You are no longer the traveler, nor the ferryman. You are the river itself, flowing, endless, unbroken. Letting go is not an act of weakness, but of wisdom. It is the soft strength of trust, the understanding that all things pass, and in their passing, reveal eternity. You do not need to hold the world. The world is already holding you. When the storms come, bow like bamboo. When the noise grows, listen like water. When the darkness falls, shine quietly like the candle in the cave. Remember, you are the still point around which all things turn. In stillness, there is no tension, only peace that has been here since before you were born. The moon lowers behind the mountains. The night gives way to the soft blush of dawn. Temple bells echo once more, slow, clear, eternal. You rise, bow to the horizon, and whisper to yourself, letting go is not the end. It is the beginning of peace. As the light of a new day touches your face, you take one more breath, deep, steady, and calm. And in that breath, you find what you have been seeking all along: stillness, presence, home. Peace is not something you create. It is something you remember. It is not a place you go. It is where you already are. Let this truth follow you beyond these pages. When you stop trying to hold the river, you realize you have always been the water.